Hello, everyone, and welcome to the You Are Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest today is Ted London, who is a professor at the University of Michigan and leads the William Davidson Institute there. Ted, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Devin, good to be here, although I should clarify that I don't lead the Institute. I lead an initiative within the Institute around base of the pyramid.
Fantastic. I apologize for the mistake, but if you hadn't mentioned it, no one would have known. Listen, Ted, tell us a little bit about what the Base of the Pyramid initiative is all about.
Well, the big idea is that we need to think a little bit more robustly about the ways that business approaches can help address what is perhaps the most significant social issue we face, which is poverty. Historically, we have thought a lot about the role of grants and donations as playing an important role. I think it's fair to say that while we've made strides in alleviating poverty through grants and donations, it hasn't been sufficient. And if you think about the base of the pyramid being the 4 to 5 billion people that are generally excluded right now from the market economy and usually live on incomes of less than 3,000 US dollars purchasing power parity per year, that's an awful lot of people. And to achieve our poverty alleviation aspirations, we have to think about sustainable, scalable solutions. And hence, again, not an either or, but maybe a greater role for business and market-based approaches. And at the Davidson Institute, the William Davidson Institute, what we're really thinking about is how to make these businesses work better.
And so you have recently published a new report you call the Roadmap. Tell us about the Roadmap.
So the Roadmap came out from the idea that while we had made a lot of progress over the last decade we can call it a variety of different terms: base of the pyramid enterprises, inclusive business, pro-poor business, impact enterprise, this idea of using business and markets to serve the poor better. Maybe we were at an inflection point, that we had proven that this model could work, but we were sort of moving ahead without kind of aggregating our collective wisdom. In the sense as we were really focused on building the enterprise of today, but not necessarily the broader community of tomorrow. And we were seeing an increasing number of enterprises making mistakes they shouldn't make. And what we wanted to do was bring the community together to think about what is it that we really need to know as a community, that while we're supporting the enterprises of today, we're also building the domain of tomorrow.
There are well, you tell me, part of your research must certainly be quantifying the base of the pyramid. How do you quantify and define that marketplace?
Now, do you mean the market segment, the base of the pyramid?
Yes.
I mean, there are a lot of definitions out there, and one of the things we try and do is be clear about how we define it, but we can always argue. And a line is a line, and it's an approximate measure of something. We don't know exactly how many people live in extreme poverty, which is $1.25 a day. The number that has been adopted by us and by the World Bank and other institutions for the base of the pyramid is generally that number of $3,000 per annum. And we also know that there's quite a lot of variation within that segment as well, but that gives you at least a place to start from.
And how many people are in that population?
Somewhere between 4 and 5 billion now. And if you begin to project out, over the next few decades, when we get to 2050, people anticipate the population being somewhere between 9-10 billion. So if you say, and I think it's fair to say that almost all of those people will be born, if you will, into the base of the pyramid. So if you think of there being 4 to 5 billion people in the base of the pyramid now, that can go to 6 to 8 billion. So if you're thinking about a poverty challenge and you're already worried about 4 to 5 billion, it gets more challenging. But if you think about it as an enterprise, if you think about serving 4 to 5 billion going to 6 to 8, it gets more enticing. And the idea is that we can bring these two logics together and help both parties achieve their aspirations, both the business, private sector, and the development sector.
Well, certainly one of the things we would hope would happen is that that population would shrink rather than grow because we move people out of the definition by making them too rich. So, what are some of the things that you think will work to do that?
Yeah, and it's always an interesting conversation. I mean, part of the strategy is to move people up the pyramid, or whatever shape we want to talk about. And I think that again, not an either or, but I think that business is going to have to play a more substantial role if we're going to achieve that. And that's really the basis of the roadmap, that we've seen success. Now what we want to do is figure out how to build on that success. And as I've said, focus on the enterprise of today, but we have to build the knowledge about tomorrow. What we don't hear enough about or learn enough about is things that aren't working. And in any new endeavor, you're going to have successes and failures. And what you want to understand, and not to sound academic, but if you want to predict performance or what works, you have to have variation, and you have to study both successes and failures and really track on that. And there are things that needs to be done at the community, and that's really the design where we have 4 main initiatives that emerged out of the roadmap.
What are the things that are working and what's not working?
The things that are working are that people are seeing that it is possible to create a business that both addresses a major social issue, poverty, and can be economically viable. We're also seeing that to do this, we have to engage a robust set of partners to help us achieve that. And you're seeing that with the emergence of things like impact investing, or the sort of a new model of financial support. We're also seeing growing attention on the idea that if we're going to do this, we have to understand, in this case, the impacts being poverty. We have to understand what the impacts are on the customers, the producers, the entrepreneurs we're working with, both from the lens of achieving social good, but also from the lens of saying that if we're going to run any business, we better understand the value we're creating for those we seek to serve. And in a lot of respects, we can link poverty alleviation to value creation. So we're seeing those as really important aspects of moving forward. But the challenge is we've not really articulated what are the best practices for these enterprises. How do they build the most robust partnership ecosystem? And how do they really understand the value they're creating, and how can they enhance that over time? And again, that's where the roadmap really is leading us to think more deeply about those areas.
Well, this is such an important issue and so central to the world that I cover and that I know our audience is interested in. Tell us a little bit more about how people can get a copy of the roadmap.
Absolutely. So just taking a step back, the roadmap is not it's a community-based endeavor based on taking action. So it was developed in partnership with a wide number of people. We had sort of an ongoing iterative process. We held a major event called the BoP Summit, which we hosted here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then about 3 weeks ago, in late October, we launched the roadmap. And the roadmap is available on our website right now, which is wdi.umich.edu/BOP-roadmap. But I think if you Google on BOP roadmap, or you go to the William Davidson Institute's homepage, you'll find it there. So that's where the information is.
Terrific. Well, Ted, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning. It's been great to talk to you. Appreciate your insights and the great work you're doing to help illuminate the work that people are doing and to provide that roadmap so that people can be more successful in impacting positively the lives of so many billions of people. So thank you again for being with us this morning.
Devin, my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
All righty. Let's do some good.